Hello, Professor Dede here today to talk about public policy and economics as it relates to everything. When it comes to public policy, whatever type of policy you're thinking of doing related to healthcare, national defense, the economy always plays a role in some form or another. And I'm going to talk about some economic terms, kind of explain them very briefly, give you an idea of a sense of a few things, kind of what makes things tick when it comes to that without getting overcomplicated. One term you hear at times is the word inflation. That is the rise in prices of goods and services. When prices spike all of a sudden for a variety of reasons. Often it is not enough supply, too much demand. You've often heard the terms unemployment and also underemployment. Unemployment, simply people are out of work. Underemployment is when someone has a very high level of job skills, but is doing a job that is beneath those type of skills. In many ways, not functioning as part of the economy. It would be like if an IT director all of a sudden was selling computers at Best Buy. You heard the term a recession, a slowdown in the economy activity. Recession, drop in spending, drop in income. Basically, people hold on to their money because they're afraid what's going to happen next. And when you think about the 2020 pandemic, there was a lot of recession going on because people who were working were like, I don't want to spend a lot of extra money in case I lose my job. A government bond is issued by the government promising to pay a certain amount of interest at a certain date. Governments do this all the time in order to generate revenue. The national debt is money owed by the government, the difference between governmental receipts and spending. China buys a lot of our debt. That's why we're able to go into debt so much. They look at it as a good investment. Now that may sound weird, but I want you to think about it this way. Think about all the money Visa, MasterCard, etc. make on the interest you pay every month. So in many ways, buying that debt is a good investment for China and a good investment for other people. Fiscal policy involves governmental management of the tax and spending policies in economics. Supply-side economics started really with the Reagan administration, and it places more money in the hands of businesses. The idea is that you give business a bunch of tax cuts, it'll trickle down to other groups of people. Monetary policy allows the government to regulate the economy by controlling the money supply and credit available, by controlling interest rates. Interest rates are a part of the economy, and I'll explain it this way. You want, as a government, low interest rates, so people will spend their money and not put it in the bank. The government doesn't want us to save our money, believe it or not. They want us to spend our money. And if interest rates are really high and you're making a lot of money putting it away in the bank, it's not going into the economy. When interest rates are low, people say, well, gosh, I'm only getting 1/4 of a point at the bank. I may as well buy that new car or maybe buy a second home. The Federal Reserve Board determines monetary policy by lowering or raising interest rates charged on money borrowed by the Federal Reserve Board. Another term you've probably heard in economics when it comes to the government is entitlements. Individual benefit programs designed to alleviate personal hardships associated with joblessness, poverty, or old age. An entitlement can be unemployment insurance. It can be food stamps. It can be Social Security. At times, the word entitlement makes it sound like people are entitled to it. Well, in an odd way, they are because they pay into it. The reason we have a lot of these programs is to prevent people really from begging. It's designed to give them a safety net until they can get back on their feet. A lot of these programs go to senior citizens. And I want to say this to younger students. You know why senior citizens get so many benefits? Like Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare? They vote. 9 out of 10 senior citizens vote. So that's why government leaders are willing to give them so many benefits. They're dependable voters. People under the age of 30, only 3 out of 10 vote for you. So if you're running for office, the voters you want are those older voters. They vote. In 1996, Congress passed the Welfare Reform Act, an initiative by President Bill Clinton. It ended 6 decades of federal guarantees of cash assistance to needy families, replacing it with a system of cash grants to the states. It put the onus on states to deal with the welfare problem. And what states did was they put themselves in a situation of saying, we have these people on welfare, we're going to get them to work. And it really improved the system. How do you define poverty? It's like real estate. Location, location, location. If you're making $65,000 a year on the Eastern Shore, you're doing well. If you're making that much money in West Virginia, you're doing really well. If you're making it in the Baltimore metropolitan area, things might be a little tight. And if you're making that in New York City or San Francisco, that's a terrible salary. Because New York and San Francisco are very expensive places to live. One thing you often hear about when it comes to economics is a term called means testing. Before you can receive any type of government program, you have to qualify for the program. In other words, you can't be wealthy and get food stamps. Another term that you often hear in public policy related to it is taxes. A variety of taxes are used and proposed for government to deal with problems. There's the income tax that's used, property taxes, the taxes you pay on how valuable your property is, the sales tax, flat taxes, estate taxes, capital gains taxes. What causes tax revenue like this to go up or down? It's the economy. When economic times are tough, government takes in less money. When economic times are good, people are spending more money, property values go up, tax revenue goes up. The economic health of any nation can influence voters. They often vote based on what their economic needs are. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about some public policies related to some items. One of the big issues in public policy is related to the issue of health care. The Obamacare, Affordable Care thing got a lot of attention years ago. And the idea was to provide health insurance for millions of people. The reason Obamacare was done was that the more people that are insured, the cheaper insurance rates are. Also, if people have health insurance, they're more likely to go to the doctor, and it prevents them from getting a further illness. Also, if people have health insurance, they're more likely not to get sick, and in general, they'll be at work. That was one of the ideas behind the Affordable Care Act, to do things like this. Two of the most common programs when it comes to health care are Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare provides medical assistance to retirees and is funded through payroll taxes. Medicaid provides health care for poor people already on welfare and is funded by tax revenues. These are two very important social programs, and the government's not going to get rid of these programs because they're very popular and very cost effective. We saw a lot of debate over the Medicare situation a while ago when it came to Bernie Sanders when he was running for president in 2020. Over 40 million Americans who cannot qualify for Medicaid. Another problem they have, they can't afford health insurance. Another program when it comes to health care is SNAP. It's a food stamp program to help people eat healthy. The reason for this is you don't want people being sustained on a potato chip diet. You want them to have healthy nutrients in their body so they don't get iron deficient, don't get vitamin deficient, and in turn, don't get sick. Another area to talk about is related to education policy. Years ago, Leave No Child Behind was passed. And the idea behind a lot of these education policies is voters like these things, especially voters that have children. They want their kids to get a good education. They don't want to get a bad education. And if you're selling real estate, education is important. Because if you're going to move somewhere and you have a young family, you want them to go to good schools, not bad schools. And that's why education is so important. One aspect of education also relates to student loans. You want students to get good educations. That way they're contributing members to society. When it comes to economics, another term that is also used is Laissez faire capitalism. Adam Smith is the founder of capitalism. And basically, it says when it comes to economic decisions, Private individuals and firms should be left alone to make production and distribution decisions. In other words, get the hell out of business's way, let business do what business does best. The problem is when you don't manage business enough, things get out of hand, like the bank bailouts of 2008 and a variety of other economic things, especially during the Great Depression. During the New Deal, reformers sought to stimulate economic recovery, doing a variety of things in order to put money into the economy. In the 60s and 70s, regulation followed a social agenda in the areas of environmental protection, consumer protection, and worker safety. A variety of things have been done by the government to promote economic safety. Last thing I'm going to talk about is public policy. When it comes to making a policy, there's 5 stages really to creating a public policy. The first stage is agenda setting. Setting the agenda, deciding, okay, here's the problem, what are we going to do? Brainstorming, getting people together to think about how do we solve the problem of crime in Baltimore. The next area is agenda formulation. Put some ideas out there. Talk about, here's what we should maybe do. Some ideas like curfews, people may say, well, that's a dumb idea. But it may be the only idea you can afford, because the most effective idea is hiring a lot more police officers. The problem is that costs a lot of money. Then it comes to the next area, agenda adoption. Basically putting it into place, passing your program. The next area is agenda implementation, putting your idea into action, whether it be curfews or hiring more cops. The last area is agenda evaluation. When you create a new policy, that's wonderful. But you also have to say one other thing. How's it working? You can create any government policy, but you want to at least find out, hey, if we spent $10 million hiring new police officers, did crime go down? If we did a curfew program, did crime go down? You need to evaluate how the program works. The last area I want to talk about when you think about policies, government, etc., is an area of the environment. Al Gore gets a lot of credit, the former vice president, for his leadership in this area and for a lot of things he talked about. He talked about the issue of climate change and talked about a variety of things needing to be done. Studies show that when you improve the climate of the planet, things get better. In 2020, when you had the situation where people had to stay home because of coronavirus and they had to work from home, they showed in several cities the air getting cleaner because people weren't in their cars. There was less pollution in the air. When it comes to environmental policy, I always like to say this: we only have one planet really to live on, and we need to protect this planet as much as possible. The one issue regarding climate change that's controversial is it's costly. It does cost a lot of money for clean air. California emission standards regarding cars. Yes, you get a cleaner car, but it costs more. Hybrid cars, cleaner car, costs more. Another example of this is solar panels. Very effective. They cost more money. If they can ever get the cost down on a lot of things, consumers may say, I want to get more into the environment and do something. Take care. Have a great day.